On this episode, we're going to talk about how content creators are the new media and how if you work in marketing or social media, your job might be on the verge of being extinct. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Carlos here. Welcome to another episode of Real Talk, my all-new series in which I interview interesting guests in the world of business and answer your social media questions. I'm back here in the studio at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center in San Francisco. And on today's show, joining me is my tag team partner, Ms. Jenna Dominique. Welcome back to Real Talk, Jenna.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually ready to jump in. Let's get to the real talk.
Let's get to the real talk. So over the last couple of days, ESPN, which is the worldwide leader in sports media and entertainment, just laid off over 100 on-air personalities. And we're talking about big names. So big names on all of their shows, Baseball Tonight, NFL show, SportsCenter, laid off. And I came up with this hypothesis as I was seeing this unfold, that is there possibly a connection between traditional media personalities being disrupted by new media creators? And it's no secret, traditional media, such as print and TV, has been disrupted greatly over the last several years based on social media. But when you look at a network like ESPN that's actually letting go of on-air personalities, do you feel that there could potentially be a connection there between people maybe turning off the TV and now they're getting their sports content from social media or YouTube or Snapchat?
I think there's a great, this is a great hypothesis, what you're thinking. Because as we've talked about before, you are your network's media source, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you are on a channel and you are gaining a following and gaining traction by talking about some of these hot topics, especially in sports, right? People around the country, around the world tune in to American sports. And so to see them making these layoffs, right, and cutting off people, I think let's attribute it to that. Let's attribute it to these content creators who are really capitalizing on social media platforms to build a following and to build an audience, if you will, that responds to their content and the things they're talking about.
You know, and it's an angle and hypothesis that I've taken because I haven't seen anyone really making the connection with one or the other. I was reading the reason for the layoffs was loss of revenue, so advertisers are spending less money with ESPN and traditional media networks, and it's as a result people turning off, so lower ratings. So when I think about it, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's less people out there consuming content, but let's face it, if you want ESPN content like you or I do through Snapchat, you can go on the Discover section and you can watch SportsCenter in 2 to 3 minutes as opposed to 20 to 30 minutes.
And I think that's really, again, people are consuming content. They're consuming their news on the go, mm-hmm. right? We're no longer are we saying, I need to be home on a Thursday night to watch a show at 8 p.m. Rather, people are binge watching it on the weekend or just finding the episodes when it fits with their schedule and when it works for them. So again, creating content and getting traction and building an audience, of course it's going to take away from some of that revenue part, right? Of course it's going to undercut some folks' roles in the traditional media space because let's face it, I can't remember the last time I sat down in front of a TV and was just flipping through the channels or landed on a channel and stayed there for 2 to 3 hours to consume a movie or a show.
I'll share with you a real world example now. I'm not going to mention the network itself, but at South by Southwest, I was actually having a conversation with an executive from a very well-known, high-profile network. And he was talking to me about a couple things, but more specifically that they're looking to pick content creators from YouTube and Facebook and these different social networks and actually put them on their mediums. And when I say mediums, I'm not talking about the TV screen. I'm talking about their digital mediums. Sure. And then he was also talking to me about taking their cast of characters, if you will, and taking their personalities and making them into social media personalities. And I had to stop him and say, you have to take into account that when you look at a content creator on, let's say, YouTube and how my kids consume their content or how you and I might watch a content creator consume their content, it's different than turning on the TV and watching a broadcaster or a journalist or a TV personality create content. A lot of the content you see on TV is much more scripted, whereas content like even what we're doing here, which is more of like in the feel of a traditional news media room, this is unscripted. This is us just having some real talk. So that's where I have to draw the line and say, if you as a traditional news network are looking to take traditional news media people and give them a personality through social, it's just not going to work.
I don't think it'll work because, again, the people who are interacting, the people who are sitting down and maybe consuming more hours of traditional TV are different than the people who are consuming hours on social media on their phone and picking up news that way. So I think it's important to say that, you know, the folks like you and I who are creating content on social media, the thing that your audience is falling in love with is your authentic story, right? It's being able to go on your Instagram and see maybe a picture of your daughter, but also see you hustling at South by Southwest. And so it's that dynamic aspect that I think really helps and elevates us content creators out there, right? Because it's like TV and productions, we have access to the people that they really, really want tuning into their content. And that's exactly why this is happening.
Content creators are getting ratings, and those ratings are known as likes, comments, and shares. Content creators are already creating shows, and that's called a story, which exists on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. And I look no further than to how someone like Casey Neistat has used YouTube to create his own network within YouTube. And I think we've even talked about this on previous episodes of Real Talk. When you start looking at the role of a content creator on Snapchat today, or on Instagram, or on Facebook, they are their own network within this broader conglomerate of networks. So what I mean by that is that if you're into cooking, previously, if you wanted to be on Food Network, you would have to go ahead and create demo reels and get content in front of producers and executives at Food Network. Well, guess what? If you know how to cook and you have a passion for cooking and you have an iPhone and you have a Snapchat or Instagram account, you can be your own Food Network channel within that network and use that network for broad distribution. And guess what? If you get a sponsor to back you up, now you can put a little paid media spend behind the content you create, and now you can increase your ratings. And that's where, once again, I have to be completely transparent and say that traditional media, to a degree, is kind of dying out and soon to be extinct, because of when you look at how people, as you say, are consuming content today, you can still get the content and get to the punch of the end game, which is learning how to cook, go on travel. You know, you're into travel a lot, so, you know, I like to travel as well. If you follow travel bloggers, you can get the same experience of what you would see on, say, Nat Geo or the Travel Channel, but it's just on a different platform with more true-to-life, real characters.
That, and because the way the algorithms are set up, that content is seemingly curated for you, right? So on Instagram, for instance, the folks who pop up in my Explore page, those are probably friends of my friends, right? That content is curated based off the things that I've liked and my trends, right? So I'm more engaged there because this is for me. It's speaking to my interests and my likes. It may not be perfect right now, right? Like some of the ads are very annoying, but in general, it's like, oh, I'll stop and look at that ad because that's probably something I would purchase. Or on television or with something so much more broad, speaking to a broad audience, like, I don't want to hear that commercial. I don't want to see that. I'm not interested in seeing that. So I think that's the spin as well, right? Is that the way that social media algorithms are set up and the way that content, again, is being curated for you, your audience is being, you know, curated. It's almost like, okay, who do you want to follow today? Because you see the beautiful images. It's like, oh, this would go right in line with what I already have on my social. So I think that's the strength of social media, and I think that's the strength. If that's something that content creators can really play into, is the fact that algorithms are being set up to provide people with things that they already like, and you might just be on that plate.
Now, here's a curveball for you. So a lot of folks, millennials, Generation Z, we have inherently learned how to turn off the channel. What happens when people start tuning off of social media because that same content that drove them crazy, such as commercials, now become a part of the ecosystem of consuming content on social?
That's a great question. I wish I knew, because I in terms of the projection of social media, there's a lot of folks. My mother, for instance, she's no longer active on Facebook, and she feels so good. I have people who return to Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook for 2 months. It's almost something celebratory. So I think, you know, we are going to experience this, I wouldn't say a mass exodus, but there will be people slowly backtracking from social media. But at the end of the day, people are engaged with that telephone in their hand.
Until that telephone is worn on their face, called virtual reality.
You know, until it's some wearable technology,
right,
as you just mentioned, people are going to still be there scrolling. They're still going to be there engaging. The level may fluctuate, But in general, folks are, even the younger generation, they're spending time on Snapchat. These are the main consumers. And so it's going to only, I think it'll continue to snowball.
So let's go ahead and transition to another industry that's actually being disrupted. We talked about traditional TV media with the ESPN layoffs and the role of content creators have had in that. What if I told you that social media marketing itself and marketers are about to be disrupted?
Disruption in social media and marketing. I think I don't know how much I would believe you, because humans connect better with humans by far.
Absolutely do. So last week at Facebook's F8 conference, Mark Zuckerberg announced his plan to integrate bots, chatbots into Messenger and much more advanced bots. So we saw this actually happen a couple of years ago. Brands like Domino's Pizza, Uber, 1-800-Flowers unveiled bots. They were more like beta version within Messenger where you could order flowers, you could order an Uber. Right now you can order a pizza. I think you had different brands like Burger King and others that jumped on board with this. This was 2 years ago. As soon as I saw this, I said, community managers at brands are screwed. Sure. And they're ultimately going to be out of jobs. I never, I won't forget this. I was at Social Media Marketing World in 2016, so last year, and I was chatting with Mark Schaefer, who's a well-known industry thought leader. And actually, we had this conversation around how chatbots would essentially be the end of community managers at brands. And the reason why is because once brands start figuring out that you can outsource labor from paying a human being to actually go ahead and have a chatbot have that dialogue where if someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I have a problem with this product, or I want to order this, or I want to do that. Once you start configuring how these chat bots can speak back and forth, then guess what? You don't necessarily need a human being to be there and have conversation on behalf of your brand. And I say this, no offense to the great community managers and social media folks that work out there, but when you really face it, most community managers have hidden underneath the veil of the brands. And where I'm going with this is most community managers at brands, you don't know who's behind the brand. It's always, when they respond to you, it's an initial, right? It's like if you're chatting with, let's say Nike, they respond to you and they put like AR, right, for their initial. They're always engaging with you under the logo and not a person. So with Facebook's decision to go ahead and start unveiling bots, I want to turn it back over to you. Do you foresee this as potentially being the demise and the extinction of social media community management roles at brands?
I don't. Because I think that there's something really special about getting an email or a message from someone with a name and then being able to meet that person in person when they come to your event, right? Or to say, I agree with you when you say that, people are communicating under that brand name, but I think a lot of the times as well, bot communication, bot schedule, the way it's scheduled, it doesn't feel as authentic. Mm-hmm. And so if the move is to replace community managers, I think that's how you lose authentic interactions with your customer base.
Have you seen, I know you're a little bit younger, but have you seen like the original Terminator 1 and 2 back in the day?
Back in the day.
Like way back in the, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version?
Back in the day, yes.
So basically in Terminator, you had, these Terminators created these machines that then you wound up revolting and fighting against humans. And I almost see it on a level like that in the business world where I get to the point where we're going to create these bots to really optimize and be much more efficient. But in the meantime, now brands are going to say, well, you know what, we don't need to pay someone a salary anymore to go ahead and do what this bot can do. So where I'm going with all this is that my challenge to marketers out there and social media marketers is this is the time that you should really be focusing on investing on building your personal brand, growing your voice, stepping from behind the curtain. And I can tell you I've worked at several brands and you will never know who manages social media for that brand unless you actually go on LinkedIn, you type that brand name and then social media. So my challenge, taking into account whoever is watching this, is knowing that this is going to be a part of our ecosystem. It already is, and it's going to continue to grow. Your challenge and focus should really be, how do I go ahead and convince my employer now to take much more of a personable approach to community management? Because you're absolutely right. I often say people relate to other people. People don't relate to a logo. People don't relate to a bot. They relate to other people. And this is, we talk about Snapchat a lot on this show. This is where Snapchat, I think, comes in to play because you can't necessarily automate Snapchat dialogue. So what if you start taking all those Twitter customer service requests that come in and you start filtering Snapchat into the mix as your customer service vehicle to use features like voice and video, okay, short form 10-second videos, actually respond to customers as opposed to just typing, hey, call our 1-800 number, or, we're really sorry, let's look into this for you. Actually, you can use Snapchat as that tool to community manage with the face and voice.
I think that is much stronger than using bots. Because again, that connection to another human, that connection to a face, that connection to the brand through another person makes it so much more real. And let's not forget that people like quick responses, right? They want solves to their problems and they want them efficiently and they want the answers to be effective, but they still want a connection with someone else. They feel cared for. When you feel nurtured by a brand, you are a returning customer. You're going to come back. You're going to tell a friend about that brand and what they did for you when they communicated with you. And I think that's what brands really have to hold on to and what they need to really value in terms of building a customer base and building an audience is the touch that you have with that audience. It's just like me being a content creator. I create content that my audience likes to see. And they follow me actively and they comment on my photos because they've been following me and they know who I am. If someone else was writing my captions for me, my following would know, right? Because it's not me. It's not in my voice. Voice is extremely important in building community and marketing, social media marketing, and it will continue to be important moving forward. I don't know if they could get my voice right if they tried to create a bot.
Unless there's some plan out there, maybe over at Facebook, where they can take years worth of your posts and then based on emotion that you put into those posts, then create your voice. Just saying.
Which could probably happen because of all the data they collect on me, but I don't want that to happen. Anyway.
Jenna, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Real Talk. Where can the viewers out there connect with you?
I would say definitely for one, connect with the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. We offer free classes, resources, and mentorship for entrepreneurs. Check out our newsletter and sign up for it at thecenter.nasdaq.org. If you want to keep up with me personally, go ahead and check out my Instagram. It's Jenna_Dominique. I create awesome content. I take some really cool tips from my man Carlos Gil, and I give the real talk.
Woo! Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being on this episode of Real Talk. And thank you so much to all of our viewers out there. I also want to give a shout out and say thank you to INC, also known as International Concepts, available exclusively at Macy's, for sponsoring these threads that you see on me here today on Real Talk. Once again, thank you to the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. Be sure to follow them at The Center on social media. And if you like this video, be sure to share it out with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and drop a comment here below. Until next time, peace.